We're getting some breaking news coming to the newsroom right now. We're hearing that the suspect has now been taken into custody. Again, we're talking about 62-year-old Frank R. James. We're hearing that the suspect has been taken into custody. We want to get you out to Justice Correspondent Jamal Andres, who has more on the suspect. He joins us now live. So, Jamal, we know that they came up with not just a person of interest, but a suspect, in this case, rather quickly. And now we're hearing that he's been taken into custody.
Yeah, absolutely. I just got that same alert that you did in regards to this suspect being arrested potentially in Manhattan. The 62-year-old black man, Frank Robert James, with addresses in Milwaukee and Philadelphia, and sort of a history of moving all across the country. According to the New York Times, James has a sister who sort of confirmed some of the details that we have heard up to this point. This idea that he moved from state to state, from city to city within a matter of months or years fairly frequently. It was not abnormal for him to make a trip from Milwaukee to New York to Philadelphia and things of that nature. Also saying that he has been on his own his whole life, as well as adding that they both lost their mother at a young age, around 5 years old. And she also said, though, she did not believe he was capable of something like this. And regardless, obviously, of how she feels about this has ultimately all eyes have turned toward Frank Robert James. And again, as you mentioned, an arrest right now. We don't have many details, but arrested in Manhattan. So still in the state of New York. And as of right now, waiting to hear more. We also heard from neighbors of Frank Robert James who talked about interactions with him. Here's one, Keela Miller, out in Milwaukee. Listen.
When I say hi, it's like a grunt. I don't see him. I hear him sometimes yelling on the phone, arguing about things. He's always chopping up something. And yeah, he's really not friendly, but I hope he's not a bad guy.
Now, James does not have an extensive criminal history to speak of. No major criminal history there in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and none that we know of. And certainly nothing that would predict this sort of extremely violent lone gunman shootout in the subway in New York City.
And we are finding out at this point, Jamal, that he was arrested in the East Village in New York, that authorities walked up to him, and it was as simple as asking for his identification. That's when they took him into custody. We also know that they were able to link a gun to him, as well as a U-Haul van. What more can you tell us about the investigation so far?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously, this investigation sort of coming to a major point here with an arrest there in New York City. This is something that had been building for quite some time. Obviously, it is best to sort of have this arrest take place there on the scene. But because that hadn't happened, this became a multi-jurisdictional, multi-state investigation. There was a mobile alert sent out to all New York City residents with James's description, sort of showing asking for help and for tips in bringing him in. There was a $50,000 reward for information leading to his capture. Police combing through and releasing screenshots from a YouTube channel they believe belonged to James. And obviously looking through there for ideas of motive. And that YouTube channel still up, in the last hour or so. U.S. Marshals were brought in to help with this investigation. And while there was a lot of evidence left on the scene that linked back to James, obviously not much about the man himself. I imagine that information will come in the weeks and months ahead. I spoke with a former police chief for Seattle and Buffalo, New York, about handling these kinds of manhunts. And he had a little bit to say about the strategy going in. Listen.
In some ways, it's much simpler, and frankly, it's a bit easier when the person is apprehended at the scene or shortly away from the scene. This person not having been apprehended and until that person's in custody, you can bet that there'll still continue to be some fear. I mean, mass transit is the most vulnerable of our transit systems. I mean, compared to airlines and airports particularly.
Now, it's important to mention this manhunt was made significantly more complicated by the fact that those MTA security cameras, more than 600 of them along the inline there in New York, one of them, at least one of them, wasn't working at the time, as Axel mentioned earlier. And so the idea that you would not have as much information about how this person was moving in looking for him right afterward is very important. Obviously, this potentially coming to a close with his arrest, but again, we'll get more information about how this ultimately played out in the hours ahead.
That's right. Newsy Justice Correspondent Jamal Andres, we appreciate your reporting on this. Thank you.